Yo, yo, yo. This is candibknittin. I'm Candy B. I be knitting. First thing I'm going to show y'all is a finished object. This is just a vanilla hat I've been working on. Aran weight yarn on size 8 needles. I just had a random skein of, this is Rowan tweed Aran weight. The tag looks very old. I got this from a thrift store for like $3. It actually says 3 on here. 100%. What does it say? Yeah, 100% wool. Sometimes the tweed is not wool, but in this case, I'm guessing the tweed is wool as well. And just had a random skein. Didn't have anything to really work on, and hats are just super easy and quick to get done. 88 stitches on size 8 needles, so very roomy. And this, my intention with this was just to have a quick, easy project. I don't really need another hat, so this is going to get donated. Usually this time of year, we're going into mid-fall, winter. There's plenty of places to drop off things for cold weather. But I just got a flyer from my kids' school. Apparently they're going to be having a drive for winter wear, so this will go in the donation. In general, a lot of folks say, stick to acrylics or superwash for donations because, wool can be irritating and it's not machine washable. But at the same time, I feel like there's a certain person out there that would really appreciate a 100% wool hat. It may not be machine washable, but you don't really have to wash wool as much. And I was actually out and about last night. We're kind of fall, but it's been unseasonably warm. And it was rainy and cold last night, and my feet were so, my body was cold, and I realized it was because my feet were wet and cold because of the rain, and I was wearing just commercial polyester cotton socks, and when I wear my wool socks, I never have that problem. Like, the wool keeps in warm air. It also wicks away sweat. It's like just a really great, it's a reason why humans decided to raise sheep and take their wool. It's a really great fiber. And so this can be just a really great hat for someone who's outside, especially in the snow or the rain, because wool can be a great insulation and can keep you very dry and warm. So, very long story for a very simple hat. Next thing I'm going to show you is another finished object. We're talking about my Kagan's quilt again. And so, just a recap, this is square 1. And it's, a star quilt motif. Then we finished square 2. And this one is kind of like a pinwheel pattern. It's all short rows. All of these use different techniques. So the first one, well, actually both of these use short rows, but in different ways. That one is seamed. This one is all in one piece, and you kind of go in a circle and then seam it at the end. And this past week, I finished square number 3 out of 4. And so this one is no short rows on this one. This one is knit on the bias. You cast on at one corner, increase, and then you start decreasing when you get to the halfway point. And this is not blocked, so it's quite skewed, and it's off gauge. And so this is what I'm calling my warm color square. The yellow and the red I had left in both solid and melange, mixed with some of that almond color. And so I have cast on square number 4, which is the final square. And this one is called the chevron. And this is my cool square, where I'm using, the first 2 use a mixture of colors. The last 2, I did the red and yellow on one, and this one is going to be I have a green, a navy blue, and a turquoise color. And I started off with a triangle in this green, and then I'm striping it. Same kind of principle. I'm striping the colors I have left over with this kind of natural almond color. I think this is almond. I'm pretty sure this is almond. And so you cast off here. It has the spine going up the middle, and you just kind of you start off with a triangle, and then increase out, like you start with a garter tab cast on, increase till you get a certain amount of stitches, and then you're doing increases and decreases to keep this same shape. And then at the very end, you'll have 2 triangles at the top. And I'm just rocking and rolling with this. I was watching It Is a Sarah this week. I don't know if y'all watch her, but Ghost. But she was talking about how she has to like reframe certain things. And so she was saying how she doesn't like to weave in ends. And so she tells herself, oh, I get to weave in ends, and I only get to weave in ends on Sundays. And so with this one, I told you, I was like, oh, this has been a long-term project. If I don't finish it this year, it's fine. I'll just take my time. I don't want to get burnt out on it. And the minute I said that, I kind of got like this fire in me, and I'm just going for it. I think the big thing was all of the planning the colors, and I had to seam those first squares, and then I had a certain amount of yarn left over, and I'm like, how am I going to do these stripes? What am I going to do? And then I just ordered a whole bunch of this to stripe in, and so I should have more than enough yarn to finish. So I've said this before, like usually when I have hesitation about a project or I'm not really working on it, there's something that's off. And the thing that was off was I was nervous I was going to run out of yarn. So I have like 4 balls of this. And so if I run out of any of my bright colors, then I can just use the natural. And so, yeah, I can probably finish this in like a couple of weeks. I'm not going to push myself though. And then the big thing is going to be washing and blocking and seaming everything, and then doing some sort of border. My original plan was to do an I-cord because I wasn't sure about the amount of yarn that I have, but now I feel like I'm going to have enough yarn to do the original pattern calls for like a log cabin style garter border, and I might be able to do that, but it's going to take some weighing because I don't really want too much of this yarn left over. This is the Hoodie Happy Place yarn, and it's like a wool cotton blend, DK weight, and so it really doesn't complement anything else in my stash. So I would really like to use as much as possible on this particular project and, be done with it and not have, I did order a bunch of this. But I can make this work with a border and just use it all on the border and figure out how to make the math work, and then just maybe have little nuggets left over that I can put in my scrap buckets or what have you. And so that's this. I still, I am, what is it? Someone said that, you should plan to like spend almost as much time finishing a project as you do like actual hands-on knitting time. And so, sometimes I look at my knitting project, I'm like, oh, this is almost done. But then I don't think about, like I said, the seaming and the blocking and the weaving in ends and making everything just so. I have to make sure all these squares are kind of relatively the same. That's why I blocked the first one just because I had to seam 16 squares together. So that one is blocked. But I kind of want to get everything else finished and then take the 4 squares and lay them on top of each other and figure out what the final size of everything is going to be. And in the pattern, she tells you, obviously if I'm knitting one of these on the bias, this one is, I'm doing a garter tab cast on. The stitch counts do not add up. And so you have to be kind of conscientious when you're seaming. You're not going to have a 1-for-1 ratio on the edges when you're seaming the things together. So we shall see. That was what I learned on this. No, not this one. On this one, because you're seaming cast off edges to selvage edges, and usually people's row gauge and stitch gauges don't match up perfectly, and I'm knitting this, like I'm knitting DK weight on size 8 needles, and so my stitch gauge and row gauge are not proportional to one another, so it does take a little bit of ripping. I have to be mentally prepared that I'm going to do things a few times before I find out what works for me. So that's that. I have been like surprisingly focused on this project, but I got to the point where I had finished this square, and I finished it like, it was like 7, 8 in the evening, and I literally didn't have anything else, any other project that was appropriate to work on, because in the evenings I usually don't want to cast on something new, and I don't want to do anything that takes too much brain power. And so I kind of was like kind of stuck, and I was like, oh, this is why I was excited for myself, because I was like, oh, I'm working on one project and I'm really focused on this and it's going to get done. But then I was like, oh, that's why I usually have multiple projects going, is so that I have things that are in different stages that I can just kind of pick up and go with. And so I was like, okay, I kind of need to start planning what my next big project is, because at that point I had worked on this, cast this off, and then I have that striped sweater I'm working on in hand spun, and that one I had finished that and cast that off, and that was actually wet and blocking. And I have, it's right here, this yarn that I had to spin in order to finish it. And so that project is in hibernation mode, which is another reason that I like to have multiple projects going, because I don't want to, there's always like, oh, I need to stop and spin more yarn for this. I did not anticipate that happening. And so long story short, I was like, what am I going to knit next? And my plan was to work on something for one of my children. And the problem is I am one knitter with 2 children. And I'm like, well, which kid am I going to knit for? And earlier this year, I got this yarn. This is We Are Knitters cotton. And I have 3 balls of this. And I bought it because I was just like, oh, there's 3 balls. I can knit something for a child, which I have a child. And for a long time I was like, I'm gonna make something for my kid with this. And at first I was gonna like do like a self-drafted pattern and play around with that, and I'm not in a place right now where I want to draft a sweater pattern. Then I was like, bet I'll make the flax by TinCanKnits. But then I was just like, I don't know, because this would be for my younger child who's 5. And I was like, oh, it'll be like a quick and easy knit, top-down raglan for a child. It's going to be something that's going to be a quick win before 2024 ends. Then my older child mentioned she would like something special knit for her. And she has the perception that I knit special things for everyone else but her. But if you guys watch this channel, y'all would know that I knit for both of my kids equally, but that is her perception, and I respect her perception. She also has been wanting, like, she also loves like oversized robe type situations. Oh, knocked my back. And so I have this yarn that I got, and I was like, bet I can make her a cardigan. And I was thinking the Harvest cardigan by TinCanKnits. Both of these are free patterns on there. I have their app, and I was like, this might be the perfect thing for her. The issue with that is recently she's been having some respiratory issues, and we did some detective work, and actually, we cleaned out her room, and she's having some sort of reaction to some sort of fiber situation. And like, she literally slept with one of my knitted blankets and she was coughing all night. So until I figure out what the deal is with that, I kind of want to put that on hold and get to the bottom of what's going on with her. So this is still on hold. But I would like to knit her something. She wants something. But I just have to figure out what's going on with that. I think she's having some sort of allergic reaction to something. And so I was just like, okay, what am I going to do? So then I was like, I'm just going to knit something for myself. Long story short. And I saw the Harvest cardigan, and then I saw the flax. And then, because I'm on the TinCanKnits app, and it looked like they added, because they don't have all of their patterns available in the app. They've been slowly updating to add all their patterns, and they recently added the Best Friend hoodie. And because I did the fundraiser for the app, I got vouchers to buy patterns. And so I was just like, I have 2 more vouchers left, because I've been slowly waiting for them to add more patterns. And I was like, I definitely want that hoodie. I forgot my phone downstairs, so I can't show you the pattern, but I will have it linked below. And it's a hoodie. And obviously TinCanKnits, they're famous for having everything from baby to adult sizes in their patterns, and then having fingering weight to, I think this pattern goes up to like a worst. So they have fingering, sport, DK, and worsted in this same pattern. And so I was like, and I think it's like $6 without the voucher. And I like donated $20 when they not launched the app, and I got like 3 vouchers. And so I was just like, I love it because first of all, it's color blocked. Second of all, it's a hoodie. And it's got like a patch pocket, and it's got a contrast color hood. And I have like a little mini acquisition I did this week that I want to show y'all. So if y'all have been following me for a while, from the Instagram days, I made a peplum tank top, and I think I showed it on a video at the beginning of the year, when I talked about my goals for this year. And one of my goals was to frog this tank top I made because it didn't fit very well. And I made it in these colors, which are more like fall colors. And so it wasn't comfortable trying to figure out the negative ease. My body shape has changed since I began knitting. And I did a tank top in what I would call very like fall colors. And so I frogged that. I washed the yarn. I skeined it back up. I have the bucket here of the rest of the yarn, and I'm going to do the fingering weight version. The fingering weight takes about 4 skeins of yarn, so I actually have more than enough yarn, because the other vision I have for this yarn, by the way, this is Rich Hill Yarns. This is an exclusive colorway or yarn to Dances with Wool, which is local to the Richmond area. And the special thing about this yarn is it's Dances with Wool and storied fiber art, and it's colors inspired by Richmond, Virginia. And so if you're familiar with Richmond, Virginia, this black one is the Poe Museum. This blue one is the James River. This red one is the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts. All of these colors represent places all over Richmond. And this was like a Christmas gift to myself when I first started knitting, because I bought these 4 colors, and I was like, actually, I want the mini skeins of all the colors. And every year, it's usually, I want to say the day after Christmas, it's around Christmas time, they do like a wackadoo sale on their website. And so I got this on sale for Christmas one year, as a gift to myself. And I've been waiting for the perfect project. And what I want to do with that, I want to do the color blocking with this yarn. And then I want to do the sleeves and stripes with these mini skeins. And I think this is going to be just the perfect project for this. And I did gauge swatch. I'm not a big swatcher, but this is, really important yarn for me. And this is if it was like a top-down raglan, usually I would just I would, kind of cast on relative to how I know my gauge works, and then just knit until, my armpits are where I want them to be. But considering that this is like a hoodie, and it's got like a drop shoulder situation, and I need to know my gauge in order to get the stripes on the sleeves just so, I thought it'd be a good, and also I had time, because I had to frog that project and wash the yarn anyway. And so this is my swatch. I took a measurement before blocking and after blocking, because this is superwash wool and nylon. It didn't grow terribly, but it did. My stitch and row gauge kind of switched, and so I could tell that it stretched wide after blocking. And I just, I swatched it in the round. So um, that just involves casting on a certain amount of stitches and then having, just leaving a lot of slack at the back so that you're kind of pretending that you're knitting in the round so that you can get the feel for your actual stitch gauge is going to be in the round, because your gauge definitely, or my gauge changes knitting stockinette flat versus stockinette in the round, because purls behave differently than knit stitches. And so yeah, I usually cast on, like, I think the gauge, it's like 20 some odd stitches per inch, and so I cast on like 40 some odd stitches per, just so I would have a nice big area to measure, and I can measure it in multiple places. And then the bigger the swatch, the more you can tell how the finished garment is going to behave, because it's not just the needle and the yarn, it's also the weight of the finished garment, the fact that it's superwash, the fact that, you know, once I put it on my body, it's going to stretch in a certain way, and I can already tell it's going to stretch horizontally, and when things stretch horizontally, they shorten vertically. All of that to say, swatching is really important. I don't always do it, but the thing is, one, if you don't swatch, the finished product is your swatch. And so I learn a lot from not swatching sometimes. Like, okay, this is how this yarn acts. B, I'm not the kind of person that, like, if I don't swatch and the project turns out not the way I thought it was going to be, I'm not like upset because I know I didn't swatch, you know? But I definitely, considering that I only have so much of this yarn, and it's kind of like part of my, like, I would call this part of my yarn collection. You know, I talk about, like, some yarn I buy because I'm like, okay, I'm going to knit this into something. And sometimes I just buy yarn because I want it. And this was yarn that I bought just because I wanted it. And so the fact that I get to turn it into a project is kind of just a bonus. And so looking forward to it. This is size 3 needles. I think my gauge is definitely going to be off, but I'll just pick the size that goes with the proportion of what I'm knitting, because I do like the fabric that I got. This is size 3 needles, and if I went up anymore, I don't want to go up, and I don't want it to be wholly, you know, but then I also don't want it to be too tight. So I think it looks good. Long story short, I'm happy with my swatch. So that's my next project. I'll have it linked below so you can see what it looks like, but basically it's just like a hoodie. It's got, the hood is one color, the pocket in the front is a different color, the ribbing is a different color, the sleeves are a different color, so it's very much Candy Bee style, and it's gonna, I think it's gonna be like a home run. And the fact that it's gonna be kind of like a hoodie style and fingering weight, it's gonna be super versatile, you know, going through a bunch of different seasons. It's getting chilly here, but like I said, it's still been a very unseasonably warm fall. We actually pulled out the garden this past weekend, even though it was not real. Like, we have not had a hard frost yet, and usually our frost happens around Halloween. And we've had a few, like, kind of borderline moments, but the garden was still very much green and alive when we pulled it out. But we just have some plans of how we want to reset it, so we were like, let's go ahead and pull it out now. But I literally had, like, peppers I was pulling out a couple of weeks ago. I think I saw, like, a strawberry trying to bloom, and so I think a fingering weight hoodie is gonna probably be the most suitable garment going forward in this climate. I'm going to leave it there. If you want to see the progress on any of the projects I mentioned, definitely follow me on Instagram. I'm at Rulude. You can also email me, candibknittin@gmail.com. Make sure you like and subscribe and you share. Do all the UTB things. I'm also on Ko-fi, Rulude on Ko-fi. Until next time, peace.